Hello and welcome to Pandora's Books, and today I'll be telling you how I met R F Kuang, the author of Yellowface. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. I've actually recorded this video a couple times. I've also just spent about 15 minutes recording this video, and my cat decided to walk onto my laptop and completely mute all the audio. So here I am again, recording this video. So it has been a while, so you'll have to excuse all the fuzzy memories. It's probably been about a month since the festival, but hopefully I've remembered enough that I can tell you all about this amazing experience. So how did we get there? Firstly, my boyfriend Toby got an email from Waterstones about the Cheltenham Literature Well, my boyfriend Toby got an email about a literature festival not that far away from us.
First try.
So we were looking through all the authors that were talking there. There was a lot, to be fair, a lot of big names. However, me and Toby have very different reading tastes. I read a lot of mainstream booktube TikTok books, and he does not. So we wanted to find an author that we were both interested in hearing from, and we came across R F Kuang, who had written Yellowface. That came out end of last year, I think. And we had both read the book. I read it at the beginning of this year, and then I'd convinced him to read it about June, July time this year. And we had both really enjoyed this book. We spent hours talking about the messaging behind this book, the plot points, the main character June, and just everything about what we thought the author was trying to say with this book, or what we suspected she was trying to say. And what better place to find out if we were right than to actually hear R F Kuang talk about Yellowface. So we booked it straight away. It was a no-brainer, and the tickets were about £15 if I remember correctly.
As was it?
Now, the Literature Festival was about an hour and a half away, so we left about late afternoon since the talk was at 6 p.m. And we didn't really know much about the festival beforehand. I wish that we had kind of looked into it a bit more, because when we showed up, it was a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be.
That's what she said.
The whole place was decked out. It was in this town centre park, I think it was originally, and they had tents and stools and food trucks. It was, full out with everything there. There was even a pop-up Waterstones, which is a big bookstore in the UK. So I wish that we were there earlier so that we could look around it a bit more. Either way, we did a quick loop. We looked around, we went into the pop-up Waterstones, we looked around the food trucks, and when the time came for the talk, we got to our seats and waited patiently for R F Kuang to arrive. Now, the talk was only an hour long, and honestly, I probably could have listened to her talk for another 3 hours. She was such an interesting person. She is so smart and well-spoken. She was talking about how she got her first book published when she was 19 and she was still at university. I say she was still at university. She is currently studying right now for a master's. When they introduced her, they did like this long list of all these accolades that she's gotten, all these books that she's written.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique.
It's just mind-boggling how at the age that she is, she's achieved so much and she's still achieving more. Honestly, listening to her talk was amazing. So she had started talking about her previous books, The Poppy War and Babel, which she had written. I think she had written The Poppy War when she was 19, which is just absolutely crazy to me. But both of those books are fantasy books, and she was speaking about how Yellowface was the first book where it wasn't fantasy, and she kind of scared her agent a bit because her agent didn't know how to advertise a contemporary fiction book because that was not her speciality, if you will. But her agent did believe in her, and she sent her to other agents for Yellowface. She had also said that she wrote Yellowface during COVID, and I mean that's just another great feat because I set myself out to do so many things in COVID during lockdown, and I didn't complete any of them. Maybe that's just a me problem. I think I have an issue with motivation. Either way, R F Kuang managed to write Yellowface very quickly in lockdown. She also spoke about how she herself is a little bit like Athena in Yellowface, in the way of when she has a book, she writes, but she doesn't want to tell anyone about her idea before it's out on page. She also read a passage from Yellowface. It was one where June, the main character, is talking about how she feels jealous about Athena and her work, jealous over her writing, how she constantly compares herself to her writer friends. And Arf Kuang then spoke about how she's felt some sort of comparison, that in the writing community you are constantly comparing yourself, if not between other writers, between you and your previous work. She also spoke about the messaging behind Yellowface. And really, what interested me was she said she doesn't write for a message or to leave someone with a message. She writes to leave people with questions. And I found that really interesting because me and Toby, like I said, we had spent hours trying to figure out what she was trying to say with the book, what angle she was going for. Because at the end of the day, June from Yellowface is a very morally grey character. Like, she does not help herself. She's constantly making mistakes and digging herself into a deeper and deeper hole. And it all comes from jealousy, insecurity. She doesn't hate Athena, and that's why she steals her work. Essentially comes down from her own insecurity and feeling that she can't achieve her goals with her own skill set, with her own talents. How she goes about it is absolutely wrong. You know, she stole work, she pretended to be Asian, she just kept digging and digging and digging herself in this hole. But both Toby and I were very interested in what R.F. Kuang was trying to say on whether certain minorities or certain groups of people should be the only ones to tell these stories or not. And R.F. Kuang said during the talk that she does not think just because you are part of a group does not mean that you are the only person allowed to write those stories. As long as you do the research behind it, as long as your intention behind the story is from a good place and not a bad place, then you are more than welcome to write that story. She also said that she would find that restricting as an author, as a creative, if you were only allowed to write what you know. She said that she wasn't trying to leave people with a message for this book. She rather prefers to leave people with questions. I find this book so interesting and the main character so interesting. I will say the third act of this book I didn't really enjoy. It went a bit paranormal, a bit, I don't know, it just veered off the tracks for me. But at the end of the day, the book was still, I think I rated it 5 stars at the time. It's still a really interesting book. It's a really quick read as well. If you haven't read Yellowface, I highly recommend it. And if you haven't heard R.F. Kuang talk, either online or if you have the opportunity to hear her talk in person, I would highly recommend. She is such an intelligent woman. And at the end of the session, there was opportunity for the audience to ask questions. And someone had asked about Babel and if she was going to do a sequel or a prequel. And I personally, I haven't read Babel, but if you are someone who does like that story, she said not even her agent knows this, but she has been thinking about a prequel to Babel. And then afterwards, she mentioned her newest book that's coming out in August called Catabasis, I think I'm saying that right, which is about 2 PhD students who travel to the underworld because their professor has died and they need him to write them a reference letter, which is so absurd and so fun. So I'm really looking forward to that book. I'm going to pre-order it. And that was it. That was the talk. It was, I will say, it was very interesting to see the types of people that went to her talk. It was a mixed bag of people. It was really interesting to see who connected with this book, who enjoyed this book enough to see R.F. Kuang talk. Toby did say to me that he suspects there were some people in the audience that hadn't read the book, which I find a bit confusing because when you hear her talk, how you know what she's talking about if you haven't read the book, but each to their own. Maybe they went to the talk in the hopes that it will convince them to read Yellowface, which I hope it did. So after the talk, this is the exciting part, she was doing a signing for Yellowface, and Toby, the brilliant boyfriend that he is, before we left, he suggested, hey, bring your book with you, because just in case she does a signing, it wasn't mentioned on the ticket, but just in case, bring your book and she can sign it for you. And so after the talk was over, we all ran to the Waterstones, the puppet Waterstones, and she started signing books, which was amazing. I was very nervous in line. I didn't know what to say to her. And like, obviously you don't have that much time. So I panicked, really. I got to the front of the line. She signed my book. I went, hi. I blanked. I said nothing. And then I just took the book and I went, thank you. And then I left. I was kind of starstruck, I guess, in a way. I don't know. I panicked. I wish I didn't panic. I wish I had said something. But either way, I got my book signed by her, which was very nice. Let me show you. Here is my official book signing by R F Kuang. This is the first book that I've gotten personally signed. Like, I've got some signed books, but it's because they were sold signed in stores. This is the first book that I've gotten addressed to me, personalised to me, which is very cool. From now on, I think we're going to keep an eye out for literature festivals around us, because this was such like a fun experience, and I wish that we had gone there a bit earlier and really taken in everything. The difficulty is just finding authors that Toby and I both enjoy, or really authors that are still alive for Toby, because he reads a lot of dead people's books. So that is the end to how I met R F Kuang. I didn't say anything to her because I was scared, but I've got a book signed by her, so I still win, I guess. I just realised I haven't explained what Yellowface is about. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time when I'm talking about some more books. And not just advertising all of R F Kuang's work. Bye!